Hello, my dear friends. My name is Margaret, and I want to warmly welcome you to my channel. This cozy little corner of the internet I like to think of as our shared front porch, a place where we, the over 60 crew, can breathe a little deeper, sip something warm, and have honest conversations about the things that truly matter, especially when it comes to money, retirement, and what it means to live well in this season of life. Today, I want to share something deeply personal with you, a story from my own journey. It's not a fairy tale about getting rich overnight, and it's not a crash course in investing. No, this is the story of how I learned to live better with less after stepping away from full-time work. It's about embracing simplicity, shifting my mindset, and discovering a quiet kind of joy in what I already have, rather than constantly chasing more. If you've ever looked at your pension check and felt a knot in your stomach, if you've ever wondered whether downsizing meant defeat, or whether it's possible to still dream and thrive past 60, then I hope you'll stay with me for the next 20 minutes or so. I'll take you through the ups and downs, the fears and surprises, and the unexpected blessings I found when I decided to stop fighting the numbers and start listening to my heart. So get comfortable, grab your favorite mug, wrap yourself in a cozy blanket, and let's talk, heart to heart. You're not alone in this, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see a bit of your own story in mine. I'm not a math whiz, and I'm certainly not a millionaire. I'm just an ordinary woman, a retired nurse from Texas, who spent over 35 years working in hospitals big and small. I've held the hands of the dying, soothed crying families, and pushed through countless exhausting shifts with a tired smile and a quiet strength I didn't always know I had. Now, with slower steps and silver in my hair, I've entered a different chapter, learning how to truly live with less. No more night shifts, no steady paycheck, just me, a budgeting notebook, and a question that echoes louder in the quiet. How do I enjoy these golden years without being haunted by bills? I don't have a beach house. I don't have $1 million investment account. But I do have my memories, rich and vivid, like the first time I witnessed a newborn take their first breath, or the many evenings I drove home on aching feet, heart full, knowing I'd made a difference. And it's those memories, along with the choice to embrace simplicity, that led me to the life I have today. A life that may not be flashy, but is peaceful. A life where I find joy in a humble meal, in the warmth of an afternoon sunbeam, and in the dignity of spending each dollar with intention. I'm not sharing this story to preach or teach. I share it in the hope that if you're out there, maybe looking at your savings with a heavy heart, or wondering if it's possible to still live fully without much, these words might offer you a bit of comfort, like a bowl of warm soup on a chilly day. It might not solve everything, but maybe, just maybe, it'll bring a little warmth to your soul. We may not be wealthy, but we can still live lives full of meaning, joy, and grace. And believe me, that doesn't take a fortune. I officially retired at the age of 63, after decades of service as a nurse at a small community hospital. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was a good one. Steady, meaningful, and full of heart. Now, I live alone in a modest little house just outside of Austin, Texas. It's quiet here, peaceful, but sometimes a little too quiet. My husband passed away 10 years ago. Cancer took him faster than I ever thought possible. And my children, bless them, have grown up and built families of their own. They check in, of course, but life moves on, and I've learned not to expect daily calls or visits. My pension, thankfully, was solid. Nothing extravagant, but enough to get by if I was mindful. In the early days of retirement, though, I hadn't quite adjusted. I'd still get up early, like I was heading to a shift, dress neatly, and drive to the supermarket. even when the fridge was half full. It was less about necessity and more about routine, about feeling like I still had purpose, like I was still part of something. I remember walking down those grocery aisles and letting my hand drift toward whatever caught my eye. Beef cuts I didn't really need, big bags of potatoes, fancy cookies I used to buy for the grandkids, and sometimes a bottle of that overpriced organic juice that made me feel just a little more in control. I guess, in some small way, shopping became my comfort. It was how I reassured myself that I was still doing fine, that I hadn't lost my place in the world. But one day, sitting at my kitchen table and looking over my receipts, I realized I was spending nearly $100 a week on groceries, and somehow the trash bin was always fuller than my table. Spoiled lettuce, unused meat, boxes of cookies with just one missing. It hit me hard, not because of the waste, though that mattered, but because I saw for the first time that I was trying to fill an emotional void with things I didn't even want. That was the moment something shifted. One morning, I opened the fridge and saw an expired container of yogurt sitting next to a bag of wilted greens, limp and yellowing like they'd been forgotten for days. I just stood there staring at them and quietly said to myself, "Margaret, what are you doing?" I wasn't wealthy, but I was spending like I didn't have a single worry in the world. Groceries piled up, went uneaten, and spoiled, while I was the only one living in the house. Then came the gas bill, $150, all because I'd kept the heater running day and night, just to make the house feel warm, a little less empty. That bill hit me like a brick. For the first time in years, I felt real fear. I didn't want to run out of money before I ran out of time, but I also had no idea where to begin making changes. One quiet afternoon, I sat on my front porch, cradling a warm cup of tea, and watched a few little sparrows hopping through the grass. They were tiny, fragile creatures, with nothing in their pockets, yet they looked so free, so content. And I thought to myself, if they can live with so little and still find joy, why can't I? That's when I made a decision to change how I handled money, not to punish myself, not to suffer, but to live more intentionally, to find peace, even with less. And in that moment, a new chapter quietly began. I started with my shopping habits. Back then, I'd walk into the grocery store with no plan at all, just wandering the aisles, grabbing whatever looked good. A little beef here, a box of cookies there, maybe a ready-made meal or two. Sometimes I bought things simply because they were on sale. I told myself I was treating myself, but in truth, I was just trying to fill a quiet kind of emptiness. But then, I made a decision to change, starting with the small things. Now every Sunday morning, I sit at my kitchen table with a blank sheet of paper and a pen. I write down what I actually need for the week. Bread, eggs, leafy greens, a bit of fruit. Just enough to get by, no waste. I gave myself a new rule. Spend no more than $50 a week instead of $100. That first trip with a shopping list felt strange, almost awkward. My hand instinctively reached for that familiar chocolate bar or the bag of salty chips I used to throw in without thinking. But I paused, took a deep breath, and reminded myself, I don't need it. When I got home and looked at the receipt, it said $48, not a penny more, and I had everything I needed. Nothing was missing. I stood there in my kitchen, looking at those groceries spread across the counter, and smiled, quietly but with a deep sense of pride. I did it. Another important lesson I learned along the way was how to take advantage of discounts and deals. Here in America, stores like Kroger or Walmart almost always offer coupons. You can find them in the weekend paper or right on your phone with just a few taps. At first, I didn't pay much attention. I used to think, what difference does a couple of dollars make? But one day, I found a coupon for a bag of rice, 50% off. I got it for just $3 instead of $6. And that moment changed everything for me. It hit me. Saving money doesn't mean being cheap. It means being smart. So I started to be more intentional. Before each shopping trip, I checked the weekly ads, clipped coupons only for the things I truly needed, and ignored the ones that were just tempting distractions. After a few months of doing this, I looked over my budget sheet and could hardly believe what I saw. I had saved nearly $600 just by shopping more mindfully. So here's my first tip for you. Always make a list before you shop. Write down what you really need. Set a firm spending limit, say $50 or $60, and stick to it. And if you can, grab a few coupons from your local store. You'd be amazed at how much you can save, little by little, week after week. The next step in my journey was asking myself a simple but powerful question. What am I paying for that I might be able to get for free? It sounds obvious, I know, but you'd be surprised how many small expenses sneak into your routine without you even noticing. Take the newspaper, for example. I used to buy one every Sunday just to stay in the loop. It cost about $2 a week, nothing that seemed alarming. But when I added it up, that was nearly $100 a year, gone in tiny slips of habit. And truth be told, half the time I barely read the whole thing. Then one rainy afternoon, I wandered into the local library, somewhere I hadn't stepped foot in since my kids were little, and we'd come for story time or summer reading programs. And there, in a quiet corner, I saw something that stopped me. A neatly organized rack full of newspapers, local papers, national headlines, even some niche ones I'd never heard of, all free. I sat down by the window, picked up a paper, and started to read. It was peaceful, quiet, and felt like a little pocket of the world had opened just for me. From that day on, going to the library became part of my weekly rhythm. I'd read the paper, maybe borrow a book on gardening or cooking, sometimes just sit and enjoy the silence. It didn't just save me money, it gave me a sense of connection, of purpose, and a reason to get out of the house. And best of all, it cost me nothing. Another beautiful discovery I made was just how many free opportunities were hiding in plain sight, especially at our local community center. I had passed by that little building for years, never giving it much thought. But one afternoon, I decided to stop in and ask what kinds of activities they offered. To my surprise, the bulletin board was filled with flyers for free classes, painting, yoga, knitting, even a weekly gardening club. No membership fees, no hidden costs, just a space for people to come together and learn, laugh, and connect. I signed up for yoga, nothing fancy. I wore my old sneakers and a pair of stretchy pants I already had. At first, I felt a little out of place, but soon I found myself stretching and breathing alongside a wonderful group of people. Many of them retired like me, just trying to stay active and present. One lovely woman named Joan introduced herself after class. She was warm, kind, and full of energy. A few weeks later, she even invited me over and taught me how to make orange jam from scratch, using fruit from her backyard tree. It didn't cost a dime, but it gave me something so much more: friendship, laughter, and a sense of belonging. I realized I wasn't just saving money on entertainment or hobbies. I was gaining something far more valuable: joy, purpose, and new connections. So here's my second tip for you. Look for free resources in your area. Libraries aren't just for books. They offer newspapers, movies, even workshops. Community centers across the country hold free classes and events all the time. You just have to ask or look at their websites. These things won't just help you stretch your budget. They'll help you enrich your life. But perhaps the biggest shift of all wasn't in how I spent my money. It was in how I saw life itself. For so many years, I truly believed that happiness had a price tag. I thought joy came from dinners at nice restaurants, shopping bags filled with new clothes, or keeping up with the latest gadgets and home decor. I didn't realize that somewhere along the way, I had equated spending with living. But after retirement, and especially after I started paying closer attention to my habits, I began to see things differently. It wasn't the money that brought joy. It was the moments, the quiet, often overlooked moments that cost nothing at all. Instead of spending hours in front of the television, burning electricity, and feeling increasingly disconnected, I started taking walks at the little park down the road from my house. At first it was just a pastime, but slowly, those walks became something I looked forward to. The gentle rustle of the trees, the chirping birds, the way the sunlight danced on the grass, it grounded me. It reminded me that I was still part of the world, still breathing, still here, and all without spending a dime. I also tried something I'd always meant to do but never got around to: gardening. I spent just $5 on a few packets of seeds, tomatoes, basil, some green beans. I planted them with my own 2 hands, right in my backyard. Weeks later, I was picking fresh tomatoes for my sandwiches. There's something deeply satisfying about that, a feeling of nourishment, pride, and peace that no store-bought item could ever offer. So no, the biggest change wasn't about saving money. It was about rediscovering the kind of life that doesn't need much, but gives back so much more. My battery's about to give out, so I'll have to wrap this up later today. Sorry about that. But before I go offline, I wanted to let you know where we are in the story. We've come a long way, haven't we? And I promise, I'll be back to share the final few minutes and the deeper lesson this journey has taught me. But for now, let me leave you with one last reflection that's close to my heart. As I slowly began to shift away from spending money to feel fulfilled, I realized something else. What I had really been avoiding was silence. The quiet that creeps in when you live alone. The kind that makes the house feel too big, too still. I used to fill it with shopping trips or background noise from the television. But one day, instead of reaching for my purse, I reached for my phone. I called an old friend, one of my nursing buddies from years ago. We hadn't spoken in ages. We ended up talking for an entire hour, laughing until I was nearly crying, swapping stories from the good old hospital days. That phone call didn't cost a cent, but it filled my heart in a way no purchase ever could. That's when I truly understood. At this stage in life, happiness doesn't require a big budget. It just requires being present, slowing down, noticing what's already here. So here's my third tip. Find free joys. Go for a walk instead of driving. Grow something with your hands instead of buying it pre-packaged. Call a friend instead of clicking add to cart just to feel busy. These small, simple things, they don't just save you money, they remind you why life is still beautiful. Looking back over the past year or so, I can't give you an exact number for how much I've saved. Maybe it was $5,000, maybe more, but honestly, that figure doesn't matter as much to me now. Because what I do know, without a doubt, is that I'm finally living better with less. I no longer walk into the supermarket with that tight knot of anxiety in my chest, wondering how much I'll end up spending or what will go to waste. I shop with purpose now, not fear. I read my bills without feeling panic creep into my throat. There's a calmness to my life that didn't exist when I was spending more and thinking less. What's changed the most isn't the number in my bank account, it's my heart. I've learned to find real, lasting joy in the simplest of things. A worn paperback book that pulls me into a different world. A plump tomato from my backyard, still warm from the afternoon sun. The sound of laughter on the other end of the line, when I call an old friend. These moments don't cost anything, but they fill my days with light. At this stage of life, when time feels more precious than ever, I've realized something that took me decades to understand. Money isn't everything. It never was. It's just a tool. And what truly matters is how we use that tool to build a life that feels meaningful, peaceful, and real. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with what I believe is the deepest and most important lesson I've learned through all of this. Our worth is not measured by the dollars in our bank account or the things we can afford to buy. It's not in the brand of shoes we wear, the size of our home, or how full our shopping cart is. Our true worth is found in the love we give, the lives we touch, and the quiet, ordinary moments that make life feel full. I used to believe that if I had money, if I could show that I was doing okay financially, then I was enough. That somehow security and success would bring happiness. But now I see it differently. The real treasure isn't in numbers, it's in presence. It's in the soft laughter I share with Joan during our yoga class. It's in the silly stories I tell my grandkids over the phone, while they giggle and interrupt with questions. It's in the peace I feel sitting on my porch with a warm cup of tea, watching the sun sink behind the trees. At this age, we don't need riches to be happy. We don't need to impress anyone. What we really need is to know that we're enough, just as we are. To love deeply, live intentionally, and hold on to the moments that matter most. Now I want to hear from you. What about you? Do you have a small trick or habit that helps you live better with less? Or maybe something your heart is searching for in this season of life? Don't be shy. Share it in the comments below. I would truly love to hear your story. Thank you so much for spending these 20 minutes with me today. If this story touched your heart or made you feel a little less alone, go ahead and tap that like button and subscribe. I'll be back soon with more real conversations, gentle tips, and quiet encouragement for all of us who want to thrive in our golden years, not just survive. Until then, take good care of yourself. You're doing better than you think. See you soon.